Minister for Defence and the honourable member for Riverina.
Well, I just listened closely to the member for Bendigo for 10 minutes, and I would advise her that she should start sticking up for electorate. She should start sticking up for the family-operated mum and dad truck drivers in her electorate. But I tell you what, I think the people from Bendigo would have been listening. They'll judge her harshly at the next election. And I tell you what, I also hope that those who are going to put a one beside the Senator Stephen Conroy's name think twice again. What a disgraceful example he gave in the Senate this morning when the Governor-General, of all people, was trying to make his statement. He said a strong Governor-General would never have copped this. That's what he said when the Governor-General was addressing the joint Houses of Parliament. And then he referred to his speech as how embarrassing this must be for you. I tell you what, he should go into the Senate and he should apologise forthwith. That is disgraceful. It's undignified. It shows a lack of respect for tradition. It shows a lack of respect for what this parliament stands for. But that's typical of Labor. And I tell you what, I would like to tell the member for Bendigo, and I listened very closely to the Transport Minister, Darren Chester, at the rally this morning. Didn't see too many Labor members there, Deputy Speaker, but I listened very carefully to Minister Chester's comments, and he referred to, and I appreciate that the member for Bendigo just referred to road safety and the number of accidents, and of course none of us in any seat in this place or the Senate wants to see any accidents, and it is dreadful. And I appreciate that driving a truck is a dangerous occupation. But Minister Chester said when addressing the rally this morning, let me just say a couple of things about road safety, because that seems to be the way the TWU is trying to hide what was clearly a plan to drag in more members to their union rather than anything else. There is not a person here who doesn't care about road safety, the minister said. He's right. Not a person here who doesn't care about it. It's tragic when someone dies on our roads. You've seen it. I've seen it. We've lost friends. We've lost family. You want to get home safely to your family and friends. We want to make sure the roads are as safe as they can possibly be, and that's why we have the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator in place, working with industry already. It's already doing the enforcing fatigue measure. There is already coppers on every corner enforcing speed. There are already issues around making sure your vehicles are roadworthy. The government is investing record amounts of money in road infrastructure. Not enough, I accept that. There is never enough. We're investing record amounts of money in road infrastructure and new rest areas. We are getting on with the job when it comes to safety, and this tragic loss of life on our roads is something we all need to deal with. But there is another tragic factor the TWU never wants to talk about. In most of the accidents involving heavy vehicles, the heavy vehicle driver is not at fault. The heavy vehicle driver is not at fault in the vast majority of cases. It's a sad and it's a tragic fact, but it's true. And of course, Minister Chester is right. He is so correct. Now, I drove here into Parliament today, very early in the morning, with Clayton Thomas of West Wyalong. It was his birthday. He turned 41 today. His wife, Naomi, and he have a 19-month-old son, Isaac. They invested heavily, a brand-new rig last October. It's already done 87,000 kilometres. He's getting on with the job from West Wyalong of carting the goods around our country, and he wrote to me, as well as driving me here this morning as part of the anti-RSRT convoy. He wrote to me and he said that as owner-drivers of one truck company, this new legislation eliminates our work. We are currently working on a full-time basis with a large company, and we've been told that following the introduction of this legislation we will no longer be required for the job, as they won't be paying the additional fees for their subcontract owner-drivers. This effectively means our only means of income has been slashed and our company will be out of work come 4 April. As parents of a 17-month-old baby, bear in mind this was a short time ago he wrote to me, with 2 mortgages and a 5-month-old truck, this is obviously of massive concern to us. These rulings are discriminatory against the owner-driver and implement an uneven playing field within the transport industry. They have resulted in us unable to secure any future work despite extensive and exhaustive efforts to do so. Small families and rural communities rely on the lifeblood of the owner-driver. And I tell you what, he comes from West Wyalong, junction of the Mid-Western and Newell highways. It is a vital transport hub. It is a vital corridor of activity, of commerce in this nation. Any assistance you can provide, Clayton writes, in overturning or obliterating this ridiculous legislation that unfairly targets the owner-driver would be greatly appreciated. And his wife had even probably more to say, as some of these really concerned wives of truckies do. And of course, they want to see their husbands home. They want to see their loved ones back safely. And she says, "We've been in business for 8 years. We've worked towards having our own business for 13 years. This is something we believe in. This is our livelihood." Not all owner-drivers have probably the biggest interest in. She was asking, I drove in your rig this morning in your convoy, it's brand new, so this isn't about road safety. And she said not at all. Owner-drivers have probably the biggest interest in making sure that safety is adhered to, that it's a priority that the trucks are in good working order. It's our livelihood. And he piped up and he said it's our income. We have to make sure it's right. We have to make sure it's going. We have to make sure we get home. And I asked him, if Bill Shorten was here, if the member for Maribyrnong was here, what would you say to him? And Naomi replied, "Wake up. Wake up," she said. "Have a look at what you are doing to the people of Australia, the ones who are out there every day working hard to earn an income. They are not sitting back taking any handout. Just have a look at what you are really doing. If you value the Australian people and their votes, have a look." But Mr Shorten, the member for Maribyrnong, doesn't care about those particular votes. He doesn't want to have a look. All he cares about is being beholden to the unions. We heard the Minister for Resources in question time today how Mr Shorten, the member for Maribyrnong, got up at a union conference and said, these are the people I love being around. These are the people, just the day after they were talking about breaking the law, about union thuggery and doing whatever it takes to get their point across. You know, these people are workers. These people are doing their darndest to ensure that they get home safely, but also the fact that they get paid and they get a fair wage and they're happy with what they're getting. They're doing a good job. Why is Labor getting in their way? I've heard from Shearers Road Freight of Wagga Wagga. They said the same thing. I've heard from Wayne Lewis of Coolaman. Wayne Lewis from Coolaman, who is really particularly concerned. He's a long-term truck driver. He said, "I attended a meeting in Wagga Wagga last night." He wrote to me on the 18th of March, which was attended by close to 150 owner-drivers or contract drivers. The general mood, I feel, at the meeting was one of confusion and total disbelief that something like this order could be brought into law. Now, I have to say, that meeting, that particular meeting to which he refers, 150 owner-drivers, it takes a lot to get 150 owner-drivers off the road and to a meeting with very short notice. But they turned up. They turned up in droves. He says, this is Wayne Lewis, this order will without doubt increase the price of commodities that have travelled over 500 kilometres on the back of a truck in Australia. There are not too many objects that people use in their everyday lives that haven't spent some time on the back of a truck. This order will also affect families whose breadwinners help to keep trucks on the road. It will affect insurance companies. It will affect finance companies, and the list goes on. We heard the Deputy Prime Minister this morning talking about the fact that it would affect so many other direct businesses, such as mechanics, those people who keep the trucks on the road. Now, Wayne Lewis says, have you people on this tribunal really given any kind of in-depth thought to what you have created? Well, they probably haven't, because even though they're at arm's length of government, this was a Labor-inspired, Labor-conspired, Labor-set-up tribunal. Why does it have to be so complicated? Wayne Lewis asked me, and he's so right. Why does everything have to be so complicated? Why not just have an ombudsman that people can go to if they have a grievance about unsafe rates? It would be a lot more simple than this order that is now unfortunately law and that you have given birth to. I suppose we have the TWU and the Labor Party to thank for this fiasco. Well, Wayne, yes, you do, and we do. Speaking of the TWU, I can't really believe that an organisation such as theirs could hate a group of people, owner-drivers and their families, he says, so much that they could instigate something as woeful as this. If they are trying to get owner-drivers on side, I suggest they go back to the drawing board, because this type of bullying will never make me want to be part of their little gang. How do I explain to a hirer that instead of a tonnage rate or a cubic rate that they are now paying, that they are going to have to pay a kilometre rate and an hourly rate as well? What happens on a journey if the truck is held up through no fault of the driver? For example, a flood, roadworks, accident or even law enforcement officers. Does this mean I have to go back to the hirer and say to them that they owe me more money because the trip took longer because of these unforeseen circumstances? And it's a good question. It is a good question. This order is going to create a lot of unnecessary paperwork, which is something the transport industry already has too much of. And thank goodness for this side of politics, the government, who have been getting in and getting rid of much of the regulation and the red tape burden and the bureaucracy that bogs down small business. And the reason we do that is because we want government to get out of the way as much as possible from business, getting on with the job of moving the goods around Australia, getting on with the jobs of hiring more people. 301,000 more full-time jobs created last year because the Liberal Nationals are in government. The other side, they just want to create more red tape. The other side, they just want to be beholden to their union mates to make sure that they get elected again, because most of them are former union officials. Most of the people on our side of politics are former small business people. We understand business. We understand how important it is for the economy to make sure that the lifeblood of the nation, those truck drivers driving up and down the arterial roads, are getting the goods to market, to make sure that those mum and dad operators are able to continue to do the job that they've been doing so well for so long. In 2012, the Labor government introduced the Road Safety Remuneration Act based on very limited, very dated academic research suggesting that if you pay a truckie more, they'll drive slower and work less hours. Well, I was in the truck this morning with Clayton Thomas, and their trucks are governed to not go over 100 kilometres an hour. And if you go down into Victoria, where they're very stringent on these things, and you drive 103 kilometres an hour, even down a hill, even with a full load, they'll book you. They'll book you. So we know that this isn't about road safety. We know this isn't about road safety. This is about being beholden to the unions. And I heard the member for Ballarat having a go at Minister Chester during a division this morning about a particular truck accident, not knowing all the facts, not knowing, and it wasn't the poor truckie's fault. It wasn't the poor truckie's fault, and I really hate to think that when this, as it should, get thrown out of Parliament, get thrown out and that the Senate actually comes on board and agrees with the coalition government on this, I hope that if there is a future accident, that Labor doesn't use this as a political plaything and say, oh, well, there you go, that death is your fault because you removed the Road Safety Remuneration Act. I do hope that doesn't happen, because we shouldn't be road safety shouldn't be a political plaything. This is a union plaything. We know that. When the Act passed Parliament, the member for Barrabadong said that the Labor government, quote, is committed to ensuring the long-term viability of the road transport industry, but that does not have to be at the expense of truck drivers, whether employees or self-employed, having a safe and fair workplace. We want truck drivers, owner-operators, mum and dad truckies to have a fair and safe workplace. We want to make sure that they're paid at the rate that they ought to be paid at. But after almost 4 years of operation, it is becoming very clear that the rationale that Labor relied on to convince the Parliament to pass the Act is just not true. And Senator Nick Xenophon, who voted in favour of this legislation, said at the rally this morning, "I was sold a pup." He admitted he was wrong. I won't say he begged forgiveness for having voted in favour of the legislation, but he did say that he was sorry. He told the truck drivers this morning, good people, and you know, as Minister Chester said at this very spot in question time, we all make mistakes. We do so in public life, and Labor should come in and admit they've made a mistake, but they won't, because they're so rusted on to their crony union mates. And I can say that. I was a unionist. I was a member of a union for 21 years. I know that unions play a part in this in society, but everything should be in moderation, and this is not in moderation, Deputy Speaker. This is not about moderation. This is about screwing down the mum and dad truck driver owner-operators in the Riverina in New South Wales, in Australia, in getting them off the road and getting more members in the TWU. What a disgrace. That is why we are here debating it. That is why we need to throw this legislation out. And the member for Bendigo and all those other regional Labor members, thank goodness there's not many of them, should get on board with us.